I have a special guest with me today, Dr. Harold Shinitzky. He is a licensed psychologist in the state of Florida. He has worked with Olympians as a sports psychologist. He also sees patients with, who are in relationships, let's say it that way, with narcissistic personality styles, and all that can come with being in those types of difficult, sometimes toxic relationships. So, Dr. Shinitzky is the author of Me, Myself, and I. This is a self help book, and I know you guys know it's very needed out there. It's a self help book for victims and survivors of narcissism. Dr. Shinitzky is also an author of several other books, so you need to check him out. Dr. Shinitzky, tell us a little bit more about you, where we can find your books, and how they can get in touch with you if they want to work with you.
Delightful. I appreciate it. Always a pleasure to join you. Thank you very much. I appreciate our time to share this information. I also value you as a colleague, so thank you for having me on board. You can go to Amazon and type in Shinitzky, which is super easy. Shinitzky. It'll take you right to the list of different books that I have. A little background on me. Before coming down to Florida, I was the director of prevention services at Johns Hopkins University. I'd rather deal with an issue rather than wait for it to become a problem. So my entire career has been spent in the area of duh. So from a preventive point of view, one of the things that's vitally important is being able to share resources, mental health knowledge, skill development for the general public. And for years, I've been a media psychologist doing television, radio, having the fortunate opportunity of doing podcasts, etc., to get the information out to the public. And writing books is another form for me to be able to do that. And so over the last several years, I've just come across many individuals that I've been working with in my practice who have just come out of a very long, painful relationship with someone who destroyed their psychological makeup, their identity, their self-worth, their value. And it turns out from talking to these individuals that the spouse that they were with probably qualified for the diagnosis of narcissistic personality disorder. And so working with these individuals and having that exposure on a regular basis over the last couple of years, I decided I really need to get this information out to the public. And so hence the reason for releasing Me, Myself, and I, a Narcissist Mindset. And as you said, it's a self-help handbook for the victims and survivors of a narcissist.
It's awesome. Yeah, people don't think about the recovery part of this process. I mean, there's not much we can do for somebody with a narcissistic personality disorder, but what about recovery for the people who are in relationship or have been in relationship with these individuals? You give a great explanation, definition of what narcissism is in the book. Maybe you can help some of us out, because I know there's a lot of stuff in the media. It's not always correct, depending on what media and who is on that media. You know, it's always good, folks, to look for licensed practitioners, psychologists, social workers to give you this mental health information so you get it right. It's not just in use because it's the cool, sexy thing to call people now.
That's a good point. You have to think of all mental health conditions on a continuum, from a little bit of that kind of aspect to developing traits that could be there, out to the extremes, which would qualify for a diagnosis. So just because someone has some of these doesn't mean they necessarily are a narcissistic personality disorder. And that can be kind of trendy in society, where you hear people just launching labels like that. But all too often, for gathering information, as you're saying, you really need to go to research-based resources, associations, academic institutions, which have done the yeoman's job of defining the research, of classifying. So for a narcissistic personality disorder, there are a cluster of different kind of signs to look for. And these individuals have a grandiose sense of self. It's usually over and above the commensurate achievements. So it's a lot of braggadocious, lying about, what they're accomplished, embellishing on their accomplishments. When you challenge them, that's a whole nother thing. But so you get this exaggerated, over exaggerated sense of self grandiosity. We have individuals who are also have kind of this preoccupation with being the best, a fantasize of being ideal. And because they feel special, they feel they should only be associating with people who are special. They are appalled when people don't treat them special. So that's why they want people to shower adoration on them. 100% loyalty has to be there. They cannot deal with anything short of that. They're actually kind of thin-skinned, if you're kind of hearing this. I mean, someone just disagrees, and you see this kind of rejection of even the possibility. They oftentimes, it's interesting within this, when they react at the cost of others. They lack empathy. They can't appreciate another point of view. They're detached from it in such a way. So people aren't seen as people, but merely objects to be able to attain the narcissist goals that they're pursuing.
Objects to get what they want, or to get to justify these grand ideas of themselves?
Yeah, the narcissist has relationships with people or institutions or groups of people for only one purpose, and that's themselves. They will oftentimes be exceptionally gifted at identifying what this other person, group, or whatever has as a need. And they do this thing called love bombing. And so they will shower the person with unbelievable attention and say, oh, you need that? I'm the one who can solve it. I'm the only one who can solve it. Nobody else can. I'm here for you. The reality is that they're only saying and doing this for what that individual or group of individuals can do for them. Because once they no longer need it, or once that group can no longer provide it, they will reject that individual or group cold, just detach. They'll also be willing to destroy the other person, if need be, in the public eye. And that's where it gets scary in society. And this is one of the things that I was kind of observing, that people in positions of power who display this and who can be in a very powerful role, if they don't get what they want, they're willing to, what I oftentimes refer to as, leave a scorched earth. They are willing to destroy people, careers. And I've just watched this take place amongst so many of the patients that I've worked with who have been in these situations. So there's
the same, and to the point of, I mean, terribly humiliating events, with other people. You mentioned about, if they don't get that attention, or if they deem somebody else in their presence is lacking, you're supposed to still go with them, choose them over these other people. And if you don't, then you get more humiliation, then you get more of the backlash in the scorched earth kind of behaviors.
Yes, the old, if I can't have you, no one can. At the end of relationships, so a relationship can be ending.
Yes.
Divorce in our society is oftentimes the main vehicle that an individual leaves a marriage to a new life. And at that point, the narcissist will control all the funds. They will cause the house to be an asset that's going to be played in and out for anything like this. They manipulate the children for whatever needs the children have. And so they can become Santa Claus for their children, just to kind of manipulate them for their benefit. All too often in relationships, and in the book, I talk about it, how from the research, it's 75% of the narcissists that have been identified out there would qualify as being men, 25% are female. It doesn't mean women aren't,
Hmm.
Women can be and can cause havoc in the male's life.
Hmm.
But the numbers play out this way. And so we oftentimes will see an individual who is a narcissist has to get that validation. And
Hmm.
as they start progressing in years and they move into being 40, 50, 60, some of the things that become important to the narcissist is that idea of being youthful still, that I have to seek some type of a like virility. So
Hmm.
I can be in a relationship with someone who is loving and caring. However, they're not quite the young individual anymore. So they're willing to just dump the relationship,
Oh.
find somebody who's younger, the younger model, so to say, the 2024 version. And it's to be able to then say, look, it's because I am this alpha that I can attract. And therefore, this is feeding my ego. And it's all about feeding their ego, everything. The the issue that they do then in society, they're telling everybody, see, the problem can't be me. I say, I'm with someone. Yeah, we're good. It's got to be my ex. And so they're willing to, again, destroy relationships. They're willing to hurt other people. They're willing to publicly humiliate. And as people get older, you see this type of kind of mean-spirited behavior take place. I should point out, I talk about different types of narcissists, and there's
Hmm.
overt and covert. And the overt narcissist, you don't need a doctorate to figure that one out. This one is a bully. This person is rude, offensive, derogatory, belittling, mean, just an abomination for what we would consider human. They are conscienceless creatures.
Hmm.
Then there's the covert. And the covert one, they don't really let you know that they are that. They're the wolf in sheep's clothing. So
Hmm.
to the world, they have this persona, this public persona, and they can do so much for people, and they do these things. And I'm on the board over here for helping, and I'm making a difference here. And your friend needs something, I'm there. But at home, unbelievably belittling and hurtful, sarcasm at the expense of their loved one,
Hmm.
always a dig. Invariably, they're trying to set up this message to the world saying, see, I'm good. The problem is them. And so the covert one is incredibly surgical in the way that they are abusive to their loved one. Again, because it's just all about getting their needs. And in this case, they have to feel superior. And to them, the best way to feel superior is that I could damage another person. Look how powerful I am. It is a position of dominance. They're not doing anything that actually improves themselves. They
Right.
just destroy the other person.
I think that's, one of the key elements that we often miss, that power game, that power trip in order to dominate somebody else and make themselves feel better. As you're talking, I'm thinking about different scenarios with women who want to leave.
Mhm.
They may have adult children or older teenage children, and those covert narcissists, use them by saying, well, the reason we can't have a good Thanksgiving is because, your mom wants to go off and live her own life, so it's all her fault. And so the kids put pressure on mom to come back, or they take over the other family members, in the extended family of the wife. They're always cooking, cleaning, ingratiating themselves to them. And like you said, behind closed doors, they've got video cameras on,
Mm.
watching every move. They got all the passwords. They do the gaslighting that's often talked about and that you talk about in the book. And it's like, you're just too stupid to monitor that thing. I gave you the password. Why can't you remember it? But no, you change it like every other week.
The gaslighting aspect is powerful. If some people may remember, there was a movie decades and decades ago called Gaslight, and it just shows this kind of slow deterioration of the other person's perception of reality. They're literally altering the gaslighted um, lights in the house,
Mhm.
and because of that, someone starts to question their own perception of reality. A lot of these individuals will cause the healthy individual to isolate from their support network. If I, the healthy one, have a support network, I might have healthy people challenging the behaviors being displayed by the abuser. And
Right.
so the abuser will, and I don't really like that person. She never liked me, or he didn't like me. So you can't hang out with them.
Yeah.
They'll interfere with someone's work. I had a relationship break apart where the patient I was seeing was the man, military guy. His wife had an affair. They filed for divorce just before he was getting retired. And before he was retired, he was going to get a promotion. She, who's the one who had the affair, she then decides she can't be seen in the public eye as being wrong. So she contacts his superior, claims that he's having an affair with women on the base, interferes with his promotion, interferes with his retirement, interferes with everything about his identity, his worth that he's developed. It takes 20 years to get a reputation and 5 minutes to ruin it. The pathology about this, if he doesn't get the promotion and his retirement is affected, that's going to affect even her alimony if they get divorced, and the kids' future. But that's the pathology. I have to win. I have to be right. I'm not the one who's got a problem. And so gaslighting is a way of being able to say, it's not me, it's you. And it's always externalized. It's always someone else. They never take accountability. They never admit wrong, fault, nor have any problems to address.
Yeah. And, that brings to mind, I have another one where it's the wife that has some narcissistic features along with a few other nice things, but it's always, you're a homo, you're cheating, I saw you doing this, and, the person that was here to do the repair was giving off homo vibes, not my words, theirs. And it's like, well, what is a homo vibe? Well, they never could come up with what that is. But when it wasn't the accusations of affairs with men and women, then it was, you wouldn't be anything without me. You can't even pick good people because those were dumb, they're worthless, useless people. And you pick these worthless people, you wouldn't have anything without me, So the person, and I guess this is what I'm getting to, is talking about the effect on the survivor, the victim. Is like, I don't know. I doubt my decisions now. I don't feel good about me now because you run me down so much so often that it's like, well, is that really the case? Is it really like that? And nobody said anything when you ran me down in front of my friends or other social groups. So maybe there's some truth to it. Maybe I'm the reason I'm in this situation.
Yeah, they personalize it. And if you think about it, when someone enters into a relationship, they enter into it with the hope of it lasting. That's not on the agenda of this type of abusive narcissist.
No.
They just need their needs met. So again, the conscience that we have in terms of moral decision making is something good or bad, right or wrong, and that's how the majority of people make their decisions. The narcissist at a pretty young age, and the way they're raised and the way they grow and develop, they don't live by moral development, right, wrong, good, bad. They live by one of two factors, and it's consequence-driven morality. One, what are the odds I'm going to get caught? And two, well, even if I get caught, are the consequences great enough I should even care? And so these individuals just keep moving through life with this mentality. And when they're a family of origin, they were taught this oftentimes in society that they had this opportunity, because really the odds of getting caught are not significant. They're actually low for virtually anything. People cheat on their taxes. People have affairs. Saying something in private isn't heard publicly. I mean, there's a lot of that. And then really, what are the consequences? Well, for the most part, whether it's Joe Q public or someone who's extraordinarily wealthy, we can see people getting away with things. And it's like, well, wait a second, that's actually validating that person who's conscienceless. So the person who's got a conscience wants to make a relationship work, will do things. Well, maybe there is something about me. Maybe I could be more loving, caring, considerate. Okay, that's what a healthy person does.
Mm-hmm.
Meanwhile, the unhealthy person, it doesn't even cross their mind. It's you. It's your fault. You're the problem. I don't have to do anything. It
Right.
is stunning, which is why so many people, as they get older in life and have been run down, run over, they become devastated. So the whole idea of moving on can be a scary proposition. There's a chapter in the book called codependency, and a big topic for the individuals who were the abused. There's a phrase I like to use. I say it quickly. I say it to my patients that when I say this, you're going to go, huh? And so I always say it fast and then I explain it. And the statement is, if I am what I'm with and I'm not, then I don't.
Oh.
So if I am in terms of having value, self-worth, identity, purpose, if I am, only when I am with, only when I'm getting an external validation, and I
Mm-hmm.
happen not to be in a relationship, so thinking about divorcing and moving on, if I'm not getting that external validation, then I don't have worth, value, or purpose, identity. So many people who are codependent, it's not because of who they are that gives them value and worth. It's because the external need for this validation, which for the abuser, who is a shark swimming through society, looks for this,
Yes.
desperately is going to feed on these individuals. And so part of the growth beyond being in an abusive relationship is to take a look at yourself, to be able to strengthen yourself, to be able to believe in yourself. And there's lots of steps, therapeutic, clinical suggestions and exercises for the person to move beyond the abuse and to get to a new place in life that's healthier, not necessarily just saying you're going to thrive, but you are going to have a normal life now, one where you can be surrounded by positive people who are supported. You can trust your perception of reality, and
Yes.
then you can see your own value.
Yeah, that's it exactly. Rebuilding the self-esteem, the internal, validation,
Mhm.
and, working on breaking any codependency that may be there, you know, but, often, and just going back to mostly females, you
Mhm.
know, being terrified of being in that situation where somebody is going to be love bombing you or gaslighting you, and it's like, well, I'm so primed to want all the stuff I didn't get for all of those years with this person, and it's like, well, am I going overboard? Am I missing things? Am I missing red flags? That's the biggest question that comes up. It's like, am I missing red flags? Am I going too soon? We talk about taking a break in between relationships, but sometimes that doesn't always work. So what is your
Yeah.
advice for survivors trying to get life back?
Well, if you're in the relationship, you have to be strategic.
Hmm.
Um, Gathering documents is important. Knowing knowing the facts, to be able to find as much bank accounts. It is astonishing how many new bank accounts are created and how they're diverted by the narcissist because their entire life is to cover up. So you have to be able to do your own kind of research to be able to identify this. Otherwise, that reality is going to be just gone.
Yeah.
Making sure that you get documentations in terms of, are there wills, are there insurance, what's the deed, the ownership of things. You
Right.
need to be able to put this together. The ability to have a to-go bag, they oftentimes talk about it, because when you leave, more times than not, people leave, but then do come back. It's a very
Right.
common reality. I do want to say this to the listening audience, that is a common reality for many reasons. Sometimes it's difficult to leave because there are children. Sometimes it's difficult to leave because of pets, that the
Oh,
threats will be made to the pet if
yeah.
this happens. But to be able to kind of set something up that if this time comes, whether it's with a supportive family member or friend, to be able to help, to go to a shelter, to get that kind of organized, to have a conversation with an attorney and know what your rights are. That's all kind of understanding the foundation and what's in your best interest. Once someone moves on, they go through the legal machination. And I work with a lot of, over the years, high conflict divorce cases.
Mm-hmm.
And they'll ask oftentimes, like, how long is this going to last? And I always give them the exact same answer. It's longer than you want, but shorter than you fear.
Yes.
So I want it to be over now, and they're fearful it's always going to be this way. Over time, you'll be able to start your own existence, life, and kind of have that capability. There's an adage that was said from one of the wars years ago: will there ever be peace?
Mm-hmm.
Well, the answer for the high conflict divorce cases is the abuser eventually, at some point, if they ever get to the point of loving their children more than they hate their ex, because they hate their ex more than they love their children, they're willing to do anything to destroy the ex. Both can move on in their lives, get married, start new families, but the abuser is still invested in what can I do to hurt the other. Right. So as an individual who moves on, I should say, you have to acknowledge there are some things that you can address for yourself. You have to admit that. Then you have to begin the process of healing. And one of that is to be able to find a certified, a licensed individual who is competent in this. So you can get a licensed psychologist who works with individuals who've been through trauma. There is a specialty called trauma-informed therapy and care. And so finding someone who has gone through that type of training. The capacity of oftentimes, and I find this, if you can participate in these group therapy, where you then discover you're not alone. Mm-hmm. Nowadays, there are wonderful websites just on Facebook. There are, I don't know, I'm probably on 8 to 10 different support groups for those who are survivors of narcissistic relationships.
Oh, that's awesome.
There's one that's actually referred to as no contact. And so they help individuals step away with no contact. The goal is to have no contact, and that time away allows you then to be able to develop your own self.
Yes.
And that can be very difficult when you're still in it or being still abused over finances and the children's schedule. And we're supposed to drop the kid off at 12 o'clock. No, I get the child on New Year's Eve. You get the child on New Year's Day or Christmas Eve or Christmas Day. And instead of being reasonable, like, okay, we're done at 6, 7 o'clock. I'll bring the child over at 8. No, they'll wait till 11:59 p.m. because it's still that, and it's just to kind of dig.
Yes.
So as you move on, and if you're in counseling therapy, if you're working with a licensed individual and taking a look at yourself to realize, there's a phrase I love to use with the individuals that I work with: my happiness and success cannot be dependent on the world. Because during the relationship, my happiness and success was dependent on this other individual. Right. And so as I move forward, there are 3 psychobabble phrases I use, and I tell the individuals I work with, it'll be the only time I bring up this psychobabble. There's ego strength, ego boundary, and ego differentiation. And the use of the word ego by a psychologist or in psychology actually means identity. It's so when you're trying to figure out, well, who am I? Developmentally, that's an adolescent thing. But if you've gone through a marriage where you've been abused and have no worth and no value, you end up coming out of it going, who am I? ? So ego strength, identity, the strength of your identity, knowing your core values, your beliefs, your standards, your values, knowing what those are is a statement of you. And the more you know of this, the
Yes.
less it's dependent on the world. So getting to know who I am, ego strength, is a first step. Knowing where I end, ego boundary, and where the other one begins. I am not you and you are not me. It's not a semi-permeable membrane. And so knowing that everything I think, feel, say, and do is a statement of me, knowing
Mm-hmm.
where I end and you begin, ego boundary. Then there's this third one, which is ego differentiation. Everything the other person thinks, feels, says, and does is a statement of them, their beliefs, their values. If they had an affair, it's not because of me. They think having an affair. If they belittle me, that's not a statement of me. That's a statement of them, that they think saying mean, hurtful, belittling comments is acceptable,
Mm-hmm.
not a statement of me. So if I have good ego strength, knowing who I am, knowing where I end, and understand that other people's behavior is a reflection of them, I
Right.
stop personalizing other people's behaviors. Vitally important as I move forward in life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's excellent points. And if you have good ego strength and good ego boundaries, you're less likely to be codependent on somebody else
Mhm.
for your needs, your self-image, and all those things that put you in perfect position to be taken advantage of by somebody with narcissistic qualities.
Really good point. For some of the individuals who are listening to this today, they're going to have to take a look at their own childhood. And they're going to have to be able to stop for a second and think, wait a second, one of my parents might have been this,
Mm,
and that they blamed me for everything that they were struggling with. They were hurtful because they didn't have a good sense of self. So,
yeah.
in order to feel good about themselves, they had to put me down. And
Hmm.
so I'm the cause of someone's happiness or sadness. I'm the cause of any conflict that's going on. And so as I do that, if I'm desperately trying to get my parents' love, which is what a child would want, then gets transposed onto future relationships. And if there's the old statement, if I don't understand why I did what I did, I just repeat it.
Hmm.
So moving from a child to an adult, if I carry on that same mentality, I may find that I attract a certain unhealthy individual. And if that's the case, I now have to take a look at myself, not only from this identity point of view and why I selected this person, but also my foundational upbringing. And
Hmm.
so you may have to be able to go through a pretty lengthy process of really developing a better sense of the self. So you go from the who am I question mark
Yes.
to who I am statement. Once you start feeling better about who you are, what your values are, the standards that you live by.
And that's a process, folks. That's why, it's not a one and done or even a 8 to 12 and done. It's a process, especially
Yeah.
starting with those early primary relationships that are the setup for everything else.
Every every chapter in the book has therapeutic exercises, either at the end of the chapter after you've gathered all the information, or actually peppered throughout it, where I have key points that we're talking about. And then I have you actually personalize the how does this apply to me? What can I do about this? How do I feel better? What are some of my goals? How do I set a boundary? Wait a second. What's unacceptable behavior? My negotiables, my non negotiables, and being able to feel comfortable that it's okay to be able to draw a line and say, I've seen this behavior before. This is what a covert narcissist would do. They might be receiving some love bomb now from
Hmm.
somebody new, but monitor how they treat, and I usually say this, people who are serving them. So at a restaurant, you
Hmm.
can kind of watch how someone treats the staff. And that actually is a window into who the person is, because they're trying to win you over for some need that they have that they're going to get
Right.
satisfied from you. But this other person, they got no need for them.
Hmm.
And the way they treat that person actually lets you understand a lot about who this person is across the table from you.
That's really good. really good things to pay attention to look out for. Who am I with? Who am
Mhm.
I when I'm with this person? Do
Yep.
I like that effect? Not just the, oh, it's the fun and then, they spend so much money on me and, the chemistry's good, but do I like who I am with this person? Does it improve things for me? Does it improve things for them? If I'm coming away feeling demoralized or always on pins and needles, I don't know.
Yeah, there's a lot of times where the person, if you start to listen to their statements and then you just want to have an adult conversation, the narcissist has a real hard time because, wait a second, I don't share exactly the same point of view. I
Mhm.
may disagree. There's nothing wrong with it. I always say it's fine to disagree, just don't be disagreeable. And a narcissist oftentimes will have what's called emotional dysregulation. They'll just blow a gasket.
Mhm.
Now, and that's on a fairly common process. It's not a one-off where someone's just annoyed or bothered by something and they go, what are you talking about? Would you stop that? But rather, this is the ongoing style. In essence, we talk about there's 16 different forms of defense mechanisms out there. And one of them is anger through explosion.
Mm.
So I bring something up, they become angry, so they teach me to shut up. They make it painful. It's caustic.
Yes.
Some people, they do um, the same thing, but through implosion. So I bring something up and they just fade away and devastate. I can't deal with this. And it's teaching now you have to protect me.
Yeah.
You can't even question something.
Mm.
So you're right. You want to listen. And I talk about it as having this filter, to listen with this healthy filter. If you want to understand someone, question some of the things. And there's nothing wrong with it. You can find out where they get their point of view from, what their perspective is. The old adage, seek to understand, and only then shall you be understood.
Mhm.
Well, not when you're with a narcissist. No, 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 no. If there's a lack of loyalty,
Oof.
they need to be showered with praise. They need the adoration, which is why lots of malignant narcissists who are just pretty horrible people just get seduced by others who seduce them, who just shower them with praise.
Oh,
It's
I didn't
it's
know that
like,
could happen.
yeah, it's kind of interesting. It's some people think they're that special and they behave this way and they're taking advantage of others. But
Mhm.
there are people superior to them who actually know the game even more, and they'll use that person as a pawn for their benefits. And so it's this morbid, symbiotic, grotesque relationship
Oh,
where, like, dictators rule other dictators with other
yeah, that
dictators.
part's coming clearer. That part is getting much more clear.
Yeah,
But it's amazing. There's an apex predator to the predator.
yeah, you're absolutely right. That's the great way of looking at it. And each one thinks they're the apex.
Mhm.
The grandiosity, this kind of haughty behavior, I am better than. There's a arrogance, a bombastic braggadociousness.
Mhm.
Those are, by the way, for the kids out there listening, those are your SAT prep words. Go look them up. The curious aspect is, for years, the abused will question their perception of reality. They'll
Yes.
they'll trivialize their own accomplishments. They'll minimize their values. And when they think about going on and now start something new, we usually recommend go slow. If you don't understand why you did what you did, you're just going to repeat it. So understand where the origin was, this, where it came from, how you can go about investing in yourself,
Mhm.
being around other people who are supportive to you, that are loving individuals, whether it's family or friends, or even online, these support groups.
Right.
They have certain rules in there. You cannot be mean to other people in the group. And it is supposed to be, in essence, a safe place. The ability to identify, what can I do to make myself better? Maybe I gave up my career before. I can reinvest in that. Maybe I can pursue an education that would be beneficial. Maybe I can volunteer in the community, depending on my age and where I'm at in life. But these are all aspects of how do I invest in myself,
Yes.
separate from the external validation. I'm doing these because these are important to me and give me a sense of worth of who I am.
So those are part of the exercises in the book at the end of the chapters to help
Yes.
with the ego strength development, ego barriers, and ego differentiation.
Yes.
This is where you end, this is where I begin, kind of things. Also, I think it's important to point out that some of these survivors also may struggle with speaking up and having ego strength in other relationships as well.
Wow. There's a whole bunch of important unpacking that we can do right in that one. The ability to speak up. You first off have to have self-worth
Hmm.
in order to say that someone did something that violated. Otherwise, you just do what's referred to as minimizing or rationalizing other people's behaviors away. Oh, they had a rough day. The sign of a healthy adult is I can have an emotion without becoming the emotion. So if my boss yelled at me, I don't come home to you, my loved one, and go, I can't believe my boss is such a like, wait, why are you venting and yelling at me? You're my love. No, 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 no. You
No.
can talk about this. And
Right.
that's the sign of a healthy adult, to have an emotion. Man, my boss is pissing me off today. Let me tell you I can have an emotion, but I always control my behavior. I don't blame the behavior. There's no
Mhm.
excuse for bad behavior.
Right.
So, first off, understanding that what's acceptable and what's not acceptable in a relationship, your negotiables and your non negotiables. Your negotiables are like, I'm a night owl and he's an early riser. Okay, that's cool. Um, but then there are non negotiables. It could be like emotional dysregulation, someone who's a screamer.
Yeah.
It's healthy to have a win-win philosophy when it comes to conflict resolution versus win-lose.
Right.
Infidelity. I'm sorry, that's a no-go. Things that for you, because you have self-worth, that you're
Mhm.
saying, these are not reflections of me. These are reflections of someone else, and they are unacceptable. They are veto power. Don't let the door hit you on the way out. We're done. And the earlier you can identify these non-negotiables are important. Many people who have codependency give up their non-negotiables and make them negotiables. Well, it only happened once,
Mhm.
oh, it's happened again, you know. And so we have to learn I can't minimize or
Okay.
rationalize other people's behaviors that violate my non-negotiable. So then how to assert oneself?
Mhm.
Well, when I was at Johns Hopkins before coming down here, we used to look at conflict resolution between couples, dyads, and we would put them in a situation where they had some emotion to it, and if someone disappointed the other, said something that was hurtful, violated an expectation, whatever it might be, we noticed that there was a certain pattern that kept going on to be
Mhm.
successful in conflict resolution, how to assert yourself. So there are people who are passive and they don't speak up and they just are a doormat and get taken advantage of. And there's a wonderful book out there called My Life as a Doormat,
Mm.
by Rose Gardner. And she is the pen name for this book. And it's a wonderful book. That's another one of those online support groups. My life is a door.
Wow.
No, I'm sorry. My life is a recovering doormat. Aha, my bad. Because they're recovering now. And then there's the aggressive person. So there's passive on one side, there's aggressive on the other. And the aggressive person has no empathy, doesn't have any regard for the other people, and they're just like vomiting their beliefs and values onto everyone.
Right.
And so you're looking for something in between. It is not passive aggressive. That's
No.
actually part of a covert narcissist. Um, the in between is assertive. And an assertive individual does speak up because they have self-worth, but they also respect that there are other people who may see things from a different point of view. And
Mhm.
to do that, when there's, someone makes a promise and doesn't follow through on it, or calls you something that you find a bit not pleasant, kind of, what was that,
Yeah.
some hurtful comment. You want to be able to, and it's kind of cool when you look at the 6 steps, you want to gain the person's attention. You want to do it soon after it takes place. So it's not
Mhm.
6 months later. Hey, 3 years ago you did. I don't even remember 3 years.
No, no, don't do that.
You need to be specific about the behavior, because you're saying this is unacceptable behavior.
Mhm.
You're saying, to me, this was a violation of my worth or my dignity or whatever it might be. Talk about what the effect is on you, your emotions, how this impacts you. There might be a difference between the intent, why the person did it, but the impact on how it comes across. Then, since you said what the unacceptable response was, you have to give a acceptable response. Hey, this is what I would really hope that you can do. So it's gain the person's attention soon after it takes place, specific, the effect it has on you, the response that's now considered healthy or something that
Mhm.
fits my values. And now we can move to the new terms of the relationship. I don't control you, but I love you and I want to maintain this relationship. And I hope you value it too, and you would be considerate of that. If you don't, okay, that's for you. But then I have to make some decisions that are in my best interest.
Right.
And for your listening audience, if they were writing these things down, so gain someone's attention, you have to do it soon after it takes place, the specific behavior that's unacceptable, the effect it has on you, the response that's acceptable, and the new terms of the relationship. If I ask you to underline the word attention, soon, specific, effect, response, terms, it spells assert. So the 6 steps of the assert formula actually spells the word assert to help you give yourself some structure when you want to assert yourself.
I love it. I love it. Yes,
So
that's gold. It's not easy to do, but you can get it with practice, folks. And
yes.
if that acronym helps you remember those things, because I think I forget that last part too. What do I want you to do instead? What is acceptable instead of running me down in front of the kids and saying, yeah, don't marry somebody like your mother because she's terrible.
Yeah.
What is acceptable? That is not acceptable. And that is not what we want to teach our kids. So you got to have the full assert.
And that, I hope people can really take that to heart. If you haven't been practicing it, I need to let you know, just because words come out of our mouth doesn't mean you suddenly get it. It does take practice, as you were saying, Dr. Carmen. As you were saying, it is something that requires practice. You probably won't feel that good at it. It'll be a little awkward. It doesn't mean necessarily the other person just goes along with it. So you may not be accepted by the other person on this. So I need to point out something. If you're passive and we're suggesting be assertive, and the last thing you want to be is aggressive, as you take one step closer to assertive, you're also taking one step closer to aggressive, the very thing you hate more than anything, because that's how the other person was. And since you may not be good at it and it feels a little uncomfortable, you may be feeling like I'm being aggressive. And when it fails, you may want to slip back into being passive.
Mm-hmm.
So it's an incremental process of working on that and getting more skilled.
Exactly. And that's why you need to grab me, myself, and I. So you can learn these self-help techniques and also realize when you need some backup expert help to get through this. And because as Dr. Shinitzky said, it's not there's a lot of back and forth. Especially people think about domestic violence more as just the physical abuse, but this is the other aspect of domestic violence that we don't talk about enough. So if you need more help getting out, getting your go bag together, getting your funds together, if you don't have a job and a means to support yourself, getting yourself ready for doing those activities so you can support yourself and or kids, you need to hook into domestic violence organizations here in my area in Sarasota, Bradenton. There's Spark, there's Queens of Domestic Violence. There are others in Tampa and surrounding areas. If you don't know what those are, you can still call 988. It's a national hotline. It will tie you into regional, local resources so that you can find out who can help you get set up in the right way, support you as you're trying to get out, support you no matter how many times you go and come back and go and come back until you're finally ready to be on your own, whether that includes shelters or not. But these are the resources that you need to help you get to a safer place, to help you become the survivor. That is the goal of this book and the goal of, joining in therapy with licensed providers like myself and Dr. Shinitzky.
Yeah, you are hitting the nail on the head in a healthy way. You're pointing a path for the viewers out there. That is the book that came out, and it is I refer to it as a handbook because it's just on this one topic. It's written for the general public. It's written in a way of language that can be easily consumed and understood and applied. So I'm grateful for the opportunity of being invited to share this information with you and your audience. And I do hope that those in the audience who have been through a very difficult relationship with a toxic partner spend time now to invest in themselves for a better future.
Yes. And if you can't get the book, physical copy of the book, you want to get a Kindle copy, you can tap your friends to order the book for you and send it to you or give it to you. There are always ways to get the information that you need, folks. So, this is to being happy, healthier versions of ourselves so we can attract healthy, happy people to be in relationship with. Even if your childhood beginnings weren't so great and set up some of this stuff, it's recoverable. So
couldn't have said it better. Thank you.
Thank you. So we will see you on the other side, and the notes will be in the liner notes for you. And Dr. Shinitzky, where can they find you again one more time?
If you look online, it's drshinitzky.com, drshinitzky.com.
All right. Well, thank you for having time with us and, teaching us how to help ourselves better.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity.